I knew something was wrong the moment I saw the envelope on my kitchen table. It wasn't the size of it or even the bold red letters that said final notice. No, it was the name printed on the front. My name. But the address wasn't mine. For a long minute, I just stood there, holding my breath as if the air had turned sharp enough to cut. The sun was barely coming through the blinds, spreading thin stripes of light across the floor. The kettle clicked in the background, forgotten, its steam fading into the quiet of the morning. I traced the edge of the envelope with my thumb, feeling that strange heaviness in my chest, the kind that comes right before your life splits into before and after. The letter was addressed to me at my sister's apartment. And deep down, though I didn't want to admit it, I already knew this wasn't some silly mistake. This was the beginning of a truth I had been blind to for years, a truth that would unravel every memory, every moment, every scrap of trust I had ever given to the one person I loved more than anything, my little sister, Leela. If someone had told me years ago that Leela would be the one to break me, I would have laughed in their face. She was my shadow growing up, always 2 steps behind me, her small hand tugging at the hem of my shirt. I'd braid her hair for school, sneak extra cookies into her lunch bag, and sit with her whenever she cried over kids who teased her for being too quiet, too soft, too much of a daydreamer. Our mother used to say, "You 2 girls are each other's first home." And for most of my life, I believed that with all my heart. I'm 38 now, living in a small but cozy house on Maplewood Street, the kind with creaking wooden floors and a narrow porch that catches the afternoon light just right. I work as a clinic receptionist. Steady job, steady hours, steady life. I like steady. It keeps the world from spinning out too fast. My sister, Leela, has always been different. She's 5 years younger, and from the moment she turned 18, she started drifting. Different jobs, different apartments, different friends. She'd crash at my place, cry over how life wasn't fair to her, and I'd make her tea and reassure her like I always had. Some families drift apart naturally over time, but with us, I think I was the one holding us together. Maybe too tightly. The morning I got that envelope, it was a quiet Tuesday. I had just finished packing my lunch, a leftover chicken salad, a green apple, and a small square of lemon cake I'd baked the night before. The kitchen smelled faintly of citrus and coffee grounds. I should have been thinking about work, or the grocery list pinned to my fridge, or the small, ordinary things that normally kept my mind busy. But instead, I found myself staring at that envelope again. Why would anything with my name go to her place? I murmured out loud, as if the walls might answer. It wasn't the first strange thing, if I was honest with myself. There had been other small, off things. Like the time I got a call from a bank I didn't use about an account I didn't remember opening. I brushed it off then, thinking maybe it was a wrong number. Or the time a clinic billed me for tests I never had done. Or when a job recruiter called to follow up on an application I never submitted. Little glitches in the fabric of life. I ignored all of them, because ignoring was easier than imagining the alternative. But this envelope, this bright, insistent letter, it wouldn't let me ignore anything anymore. When I got to work that day, I tried to push the whole thing out of my mind. The clinic was already buzzing with the usual morning activity, phones ringing, printers humming, the soft shuffle of patients settling into chairs. "Morning, May," Dr. Patel called from his office as he walked by, tying his white coat. "Not really," I said. "Just thinking too much." He smiled. "That's normal. Thinking is a sign you're alive." If only he knew. The day went on like every other. refilling forms, greeting patients, rescheduling appointments. But every time I reached for a pen or typed in someone's information, that envelope flashed in my mind. Each time I pushed it away. I've always been good at compartmentalizing. At lunch, I sat at the small break table by the window. The sun was warm on my arms, birds hopped along the sill outside, and that's when my phone buzzed. A text from Leela. "Hey sis, I need to ask you something important. Can I call you later?" Nothing unusual, right? But something in me tightened. A small instinctive twist, like my body knew before my mind did. "Sir," I typed back. "I'm at work. Call after 6. She sent a heart emoji. Simple, sweet, familiar. I stared at it for a long second. Maybe this would be nothing. Maybe that envelope was just one of those strange coincidences that happen in life, like seeing someone who looks just like you in a different city or losing your favorite sock every time you do laundry. But deep down, I felt the shift, like a quiet warning, like the moment before the first crack appears in a mirror. When I got home that night, the house felt strangely still. I locked the door, set my bag down, and turned on the lamp in the living room. The soft yellow glow made everything look gentle and familiar. I wished the feeling inside me matched the warmth of my home. I sat at the dining table and placed the envelope right in front of me. It looked harmless. Just paper and ink. Inside was a notice for an overdue credit card bill, a card I never applied for, under my name, but using her address. I whispered to myself, "No, she wouldn't." But the words felt weak even as they left my lips. And that was the moment, the exact second, I realized something. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of what I might learn about my own sister. I must have read that letter a dozen times. Every word felt like it had weight, like the ink was somehow heavier than the paper itself. The amount due wasn't outrageous, but it wasn't small either. Enough to make me sit back in my chair and press my fingers against my temples. I wanted to believe there was some logical explanation, a clerical error, a strange coincidence, anything but the truth rising slowly in my chest like cold water. But as I sat there, listening to the gentle hum of my refrigerator, another memory slipped in. The last time Leela had asked to borrow my mailbox key. It was about 6 months earlier. She'd shown up at my house unannounced, her eyes glossy in that way they got when she had been crying, though she insisted she hadn't. "May, do you still have that spare key for the mailbox you never use?" She'd fidgeted with her sleeves when she said it. She always tugged at her sleeves when she was lying. "Why do you need it?" I asked. "Oh, just something with my apartment." She said it too quickly. I felt the lie even then. But she'd asked softly, in that fragile way she knew would disarm me. And like every time before, I gave in. I reached for my phone that night, wanting to call her immediately, ask her straight out, but something in me hesitated. The kind of hesitation that comes when you fear the answer more than the question. Instead, I waited. At exactly 6:17 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. Leela calling. I stared at the screen for a moment before answering. "Hey sis," she said, her voice bright, too bright, like she was trying to cover something. "Hi," I replied, forcing my tone to stay even. "You said you needed to ask me something." There was a short silence, a small crackling pause that told me more than her words ever could. "Yeah," she said finally. "I was wondering if I could use your address for a job application, just for a little while. My landlord lost some of my mail last month and it messed up a bunch of things." I didn't move. Not a muscle. It was too specific, too rehearsed, too close to what I already suspected. That sounds complicated, I said quietly. Why not use a P.O. box or mom's address? I just told you, she snapped, too quickly again. May, why are you being difficult? It's just mail. I sat back, letting the quiet stretch. She hated silence. She always filled it with excuses. And right on cue, she added, I'm really trying to get my life together this time. I just need some support, especially from you. She weaponized her fragility when she needed to. But I wasn't the same soft-hearted older sister I used to be. Not anymore. Still, something in me softened. Old habits die slowly. I'll think about it, I said. Think about it? She repeated, offended. Wow. Leela, I just need a minute. Fine. Whatever. Call me when you're ready to help your only sister. And just like that, she hung up. I stared at my phone long after the call ended. Something was wrong. Deeply, undeniably wrong. And I had no idea how much worse it was going to get. 2 days later, I got a call at work. It was near closing time. The clinic lights were dimming, and the last patient had just walked out. I was logging the day's appointments when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something urged me to pick up. Hello? I said. Good evening. May I speak with Mae Thompson regarding her recent loan inquiry? I sat up straight. My hands went cold. I didn't apply for any loan. The woman on the phone hesitated, then said, Ma'am, this application was made yesterday, using your full legal information. I felt the world tilt a little. What address was used? I asked, my voice thin. She read it out loud. It was Leela's apartment address. My heart felt like it had dropped straight into my stomach. I pressed my fingers against my desk, steadying myself. There must be a mistake, I managed. Ma'am, applications like this are typically made by the applicant themselves. Her tone shifted, calm but cautious, the way people speak when they sense something is very wrong. I need to file a fraud report. She began giving me the steps, but her voice sounded distant, like I was underwater, like every sound around me was muffled under pressure. Fraud. That was the word. A word I never thought would be attached to my own sister. When the call ended, I sat in the empty clinic, staring at the wall clock. Tick, tick, tick. Each second felt like a reminder of how long I'd ignored the signs. On the drive home, memories kept flashing like headlights in fog. Leela asking for my social security number for school forms. Leela asking if I had a spare ID photo. Leela poking around my desk drawers when she thought I wasn't looking. Leela saying, "You're the responsible one. You don't need credit cards." So many little red flags, tiny, almost invisible, but together they formed something undeniable. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands were trembling. The porch light flickered automatically, bathing the front step in a soft glow. My house, my sanctuary, suddenly didn't feel as safe as it had that morning. I walked inside, locked the door, and leaned against it. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I knew I needed to confront her, but I also knew something else. Whatever truth came next, I might not be ready for it. Still, I took a breath, reached for my phone, and typed a message. We need to talk. Tomorrow. In person. No emojis. No softness. She replied almost instantly. Okay, should I be worried? I stared at her message. A sad, bitter smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Yes, I typed. You should. I turned off the lights, went to bed, and lay awake for hours. listening to the hum of the ceiling fan, the occasional car passing by, the soft groan of the house settling. But mostly, I listened to something inside me breaking quietly, slowly, irreversibly. Because tomorrow, I wasn't meeting my sister. I was meeting the stranger who had been wearing my name. Morning came heavy. I barely slept, drifting in and out of shallow dreams that felt more like memories, distorted versions of Leela laughing, Leela crying, Leela holding my arm when she wanted something. I woke up with a headache pulsing just behind my eyes, the kind that comes from emotional exhaustion more than lack of sleep. The sun was out, bright and intrusive, pouring through the blinds like it had no idea my world felt so dark. I made coffee but didn't drink it. I paced the living room. I checked my phone twice, then 3 times, wondering if she'd cancel. She didn't. At 10:12 a.m., I heard her car pulling into the driveway, her music thumping louder than necessary, as if confidence could be played through speakers. I stood in the doorway as she approached. She looked normal. Jeans, a loose sweatshirt, hair in a messy bun, but her eyes were restless, flicking around like she was preparing an excuse before she even stepped inside. "Hey," she said, smiling in that anxious way she did when she wanted approval. "You look tired." "I am," I replied. "Come in." She stepped inside, glancing around the house. I noticed she didn't take off her shoes. A small detail, but it struck me. She used to always slip them off without being asked. Now she stood like a visitor. No, like someone preparing for a quick escape. I gestured to the couch. "Sit." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Sit? May, what's going on? You're scaring me." She sat anyway. I took the armchair across from her, deliberately, creating distance, creating space. Leela hugged a cushion to her chest, hiding behind it like a child. "Okay," she said. "Talk." I didn't speak for a moment. I watched her instead. Her nails were chewed down to the skin. Her knee bounced. She kept swallowing like her throat was dry. Guilt has a look. She was wearing all of it. Finally, I spoke. A bank called me. Her knee stopped bouncing. "And," she whispered, "they said someone used my information to apply for a loan." Silence. Stillness. Even the air in the room felt like it paused. She blinked once, twice. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," I said, voice steady, "they used your address." Her face tightened just a little. "Barely noticeable, unless you were looking for it." "You think I did it?" "I don't think anything," I said. "I know." Her jaw twitched. She looked away. "That's insane. You're seriously accusing me, your own sister?" Accusing implies doubt. I don't have any. I watched the words land. They hit her hard. For the first time since she walked in, her expression cracked, just a flicker, but I saw it. Fear, recognition, and something else, a kind of wounded pride, like she wanted to be angry but had no ground to stand on. She inhaled sharply, then laughed a hollow, brittle sound. "Wow, if you're gonna blame me for your problems, I should just leave." She stood up. "Sit," I said again, quietly, but with a tone she wasn't used to. Her body froze on instinct. Then slowly she sat back down. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, she looked at me like she didn't know who she was talking to. Good. She needed to see I wasn't the same woman she'd manipulated for years. Leela sighed, rubbing her forehead. "Fine," she said softly. "What do you want me to say? That I helped you out with some paperwork before? That I used your address once because mine was messed up? You're blowing everything out of proportion." "You didn't help me," I replied. "And the bank call wasn't the only thing." Her head snapped up. "What else?" I reached for the drawer beside me and pulled out the envelope, the letter that started it all. Her expression tightened the moment she saw it. "I found this, hidden in the back of my mailbox. Not delivered, hidden." Her breath caught. "And the balance? The amount due? It's tied to an account under my name that I never opened." Leela's face paled. She looked cornered, like a fox surrounded by hunters. "May, I can explain." Those words, the universal warning sign. "I'm listening." She swallowed hard. "I was going through a rough time. I needed help, real help. And you were always too busy to answer your phone, too busy with work, too busy with your life." "Stop," I said sharply. "Don't turn this into me failing you." Her shoulders slumped. She tried a different tactic, her voice breaking. "I was desperate. I thought I could pay it back before you found out. I didn't want to embarrass you or drag you into it." "Into what? How much is there?" She stared at her hands, voice barely audible. "May, it's bad?" I leaned forward. "Tell me." She didn't. She cried instead. Soft at first, then choking sobs that shook her shoulders. Once, I would have rushed to her. I would have held her, whispered that everything would be okay. But now, I sat still. Her tears felt like a strategy. And even if they weren't, they came too late. After minutes of silence, she finally spoke. "I opened a small credit line in your name, just one. It was supposed to help me get back on my feet." "One?" I repeated. "Are you sure it's just one?" "Yes," she cried. "Just one. I swear, I never meant it to go this far." Her voice broke in a way that almost sounded real. Almost. Something in her eyes didn't match her words. A flicker. A hesitation. She wasn't telling me everything. I felt a slow chill climb up my spine. The kind that comes when you're staring at a truth someone hasn't spoken yet. "What's the total amount, Lila?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. Her mouth opened, then closed. "Lila," I whispered. "How much?" This time, the silence answered for her, and the silence was terrifying. In that moment, sitting in my own living room across from the girl I once protected from bullies and nightmares and heartbreaks, I understood something I'd spent years of waiting. Lila didn't just make a mistake. She didn't just slip or stumble or panic. She crossed a line. And once someone crosses a line like that, they rarely stop at one. My stomach twisted. My heart ached, but my voice remained steady. "Tomorrow," I said, "we're going to the bank together. You're telling them everything you just told me, in your own words." She froze. Her eyes widened. "Tomorrow? I can't tomorrow." "You will, or I will." Her face drained of color. She knew exactly what "or I will" meant. For the first time in years, Lila looked at me not like her older sister, but like the one person she could no longer control. And she hated it. Her voice trembled when she spoke again. "May, please don't do this." I exhaled slowly. You already did this, I said softly. I'm just cleaning up the pieces. Her lower lip began to shake. Whether from guilt, fear, or anger, I couldn't tell. Maybe all three. As she sat there, small, fragile, unraveling, I realized something painful. This wasn't the confrontation. This was only the beginning. The truth was bigger, darker, much deeper than she was willing to admit in one sitting. And tomorrow, the mask would fall completely. After Lila left, the house felt colder. Not physically, just emptier. Hollow in a way that made every sound echo a little too loudly. I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the doorway she had walked through minutes earlier. It was strange how someone could cross a single threshold and leave behind such an ache. Like the air still carried her shape, her lies, her fear. Part of me wanted to crumble. Part of me wanted to scream. Most of me just felt tired, bone tired, soul tired. I curled into the blanket but didn't sleep. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, wide-eyed, shaking, hiding something she was terrified I'd uncover. One credit line? I didn't believe it. Not for a second. People don't confess to a single sin when they're drowning. They confess to the smallest one they think might get them sympathy. The real truth, the truth she hadn't spoken, it was waiting for me tomorrow. And I wasn't ready. But I also couldn't run from it. Not anymore. I expected dread the next morning. Instead, I felt a strange, almost eerie calm, like my body had already accepted whatever was coming. I made coffee. I dressed slowly. I looked at myself in the mirror longer than usual. I didn't look broken. I didn't look angry. I just looked older. Like the past 24 hours had added years onto my shoulders. At 9:04 a.m., my phone vibrated. Lila. Morning. I'm not feeling well. Can we reschedule? I stared at the message. Excuses already. I typed back. No, we're going today. 11 a.m. I'll meet you at your place. She didn't reply for almost 10 minutes. Lila. Fine. But May, please go easy on me. I'm trying. Trying. That word felt like a bruise. I arrived at 10:58 a.m. Her building was small and aging, with peeling paint near the stairwells and a flickering hallway light that buzzed whenever you passed beneath it. I'd been there 100 times before, but today it felt different, like the walls themselves were holding secrets. When she opened the door, her eyes were red, like she had been crying for hours or trying very hard to look like she had. Her apartment was a mess. Clothes on the couch, unopened mail on the floor, takeout containers scattered across the counter. But one thing stood out. A stack of envelopes on the coffee table, all unopened, all with my name. I froze. Lila said quietly, "What is that?" She stepped quickly in front of them, blocking my view. "Nothing," she said. "Just old stuff. Forget it." "I won't forget it," I replied. "Move." Her shoulders tensed. "May, please, move." My voice was sharper than I intended, but she moved. And when she did, the world shifted under my feet. I picked up the first envelope, then the second, then the third. Electric bills, phone statements, a credit card I never applied for, a store card from somewhere I'd never even shopped, all under my name, all using her address. I felt my breath catch in my chest. Dozens of them. Months worth. Maybe longer. I lifted my head slowly and looked at her. She couldn't meet my eyes. "How long?" I whispered. She swallowed. "Lila," I said again, voice trembling now. "How long?" She sank onto the couch, her head falling into her hands. 18 months, she whispered. I felt the world tilt, like gravity shifted sideways. 18 months? I repeated. She nodded, barely. That's why I asked for your mail key that day. I panicked. I didn't want you to see the notices. I thought I could fix it before you found out. My knees went weak. 18 months? I said again. Lila, that's not a mistake. That's a whole life built on a lie. She looked up at me with swollen eyes. I know, she whispered. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant it to go this far. She said it again. But this time, the words felt empty, like she had said them so many times they no longer held shape. I thought I would explode, scream, break something. But instead, I sat down slowly beside her. The tears didn't come. Not yet. I just stared at the pile of envelopes, my name in bold black letters, sitting on a table in a place where my life had never lived. How much? I asked. She hesitated. My stomach dropped. Lila, I said, how much total? She whispered it so softly I almost didn't hear. 17,000. The number punched the air right out of my lungs. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, trying to breathe, trying not to collapse under the weight of it. May, she said, reaching for my arm, please, I'm begging you. Don't hate me. I'm your sister. I messed up. I know I did, but I can fix it. I promise. I'll pay you back. Her hand touched my sleeve. I pulled away. It wasn't anger. It wasn't disgust. It was grief. Because in that moment, I realized something devastating. I was mourning someone who was still alive. Lila wiped her eyes and leaned closer, desperate. There's one more thing, she whispered. My head lifted slowly. Of course there was. What? She hesitated longer this time. Her voice shook. I need you to come with me today because the bank won't talk to me alone, and they sent a final notice last week. My heart dropped again. Final notice for what? I asked. She swallowed hard. The loan, the big one. My hands went cold. What big one? She closed her eyes. The $32,000 one. The room spun. Her voice felt far away, like it was drifting through water. I stared at her, at the sister I once trusted more than anyone. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't recognize her at all. I stood up slowly, the floor feeling unstable beneath my feet. Lila watched me with wide, terrified eyes, and all I could think was, this isn't just debt. This is destruction. And she brought it to my doorstep like it was nothing. Tomorrow wasn't going to be confrontation. It was going to be war. We rode in silence. Lila sat in the passenger seat, wringing her hands so tightly her knuckles turned white. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was a storm. Every memory of her, every moment I had protected her, shielded her, forgiven her, they all played like broken film reels. The sky was overcast, heavy, the kind of gray that settles over everything like a warning. Even the air in the car felt thick, like it knew something irreversible was coming. At a red light, Lila finally spoke. May, please don't be mad at me in there. If you act angry, they'll think I'm dangerous or something, and they'll definitely press charges. I turned my head slowly toward her. That's what you're worried about? My voice was calm, but it wasn't kindness. It was disbelief. She swallowed, said nothing. The light turned green. We drove on. The bank was busy, lunchtime crowd, people depositing checks, talking quietly, waiting for their number to be called. But when we stepped in, something changed. Or maybe I changed. I felt exposed, like every person in that room could see the lie wrapped around my name. We approached the front desk. The associate, a young man with soft eyes, smiled politely. "How can I help you both today?" Before I could speak, Lila stepped forward. "We're here about my sister's account, the loan under her name." Her voice shook. The associate glanced at me. His eyes lingered a moment, maybe sensing the tension. I nodded. He motioned toward a small office in the back. "Please, right this way." We followed him through a narrow hallway. My heartbeat felt loud, too loud. When he closed the office door behind us, the air shifted. Quieter, heavier, waiting. He sat down, opened his computer, folded his hands. "Before we begin," he said gently, "can I confirm your full name?" I said it. My real name, the name my parents gave me, the name I thought belonged only to me. He nodded. "And you?" he said to Lila. She stiffened. "My sister is here for support." He didn't smile. He didn't comment. He just turned the screen slightly so I could see it. There it was, a loan application with my name, my birth date, my social security number, my employment information, and Lila's address. I felt something deep inside me crack. "Ma'am," he said softly, "this application was submitted 4 months ago. Payments have not been made for the last 3 cycles. We sent multiple notices. This is now at risk of going into collections or legal action." I nodded slowly, even though I felt like I was drowning. "I didn't apply for this," I whispered. He exhaled, like he already knew, like he had seen this story before. "Then I need to ask, do you know who did?" I looked at Lila. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her hands shook in her lap. Her lip trembled. And in that moment, I realized something horrifying. She expected me to lie for her, to say that we authorized it together, to say I knew. She expected me to save her. Again. The associate waited, and I spoke. "No," I said. "I didn't authorize any of this. My sister stole my identity." The room went silent. Lila's breath hitched. Her hand flew to her chest. "Mae," she hissed, "what are you doing?" I didn't look at her. I looked at the man in front of me. My voice was steady, too steady. "I would like to file an official fraud claim." Lila's voice broke. "Mae, please." I turned to her very slowly. "Stop," I said. Not loud, not sharp, just final. Her face crumpled. The associate nodded and began gathering paperwork. "Ma'am, we'll take care of this step by step. I'll walk you through everything." For the first time in hours, I felt something like gravity returning, slow, heavy, anchoring me. But then, Lila stood up abruptly, knocking her chair into the wall. "You're ruining my life. Do you understand that? I could go to jail." People in the hallway turned to look. My cheeks burned, not from shame, but from sadness. Because the sister I once carried on my hip, braided hair for, defended at school, cried with through heartbreaks, she was now screaming in a bank about crimes she committed using my name. The associate spoke firmly. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down. If not, I'll have to ask you to wait outside." Lila shook her head violently. "No, she can't do this to me." Tell him, May. Tell him you knew. Tell him we planned it. Each word was a knife, but not one that cut me. One that cut the remaining thread between us. Slowly, quietly, I said, Lila, please leave the office. She stared at me stunned. Leave, she whispered. You're choosing them over me? Her eyes were wild, red, desperate. You're my sister. Yes, I said softly, and you broke me long before today. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Her face, once so familiar, looked like a stranger's. She backed away, step by step, like she couldn't believe the ground beneath her feet was real. And then she did something I wasn't prepared for. She fled, past the teller stations, past the line of customers, out the front door. And just like that, she was gone. The associate apologized for her scene. I shook my head. No, I said, don't apologize. This isn't your fault. He walked me through the fraud forms. Every signature hurt. It wasn't the financial harm. It wasn't the hassle. It was something far deeper. With every signature, I was admitting that the sister I loved had stolen not just my name, but my trust, my history, my stability, pieces of me I didn't know could be taken. When we finished, he stood. We'll be in touch, Miss Thompson. You did the right thing. I nodded, but as I stepped outside into the cool air, I didn't feel righteous. I felt hollow, because even when the right thing is done, the pain doesn't leave room for victory. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, breathing slowly, trying to understand the shape of my life now. My sister had run. My name was ruined. My world had tilted into a story I never imagined could be mine. And somewhere, wherever she had gone, Lila was unraveling, and the consequences were only beginning. I never imagined that a single meeting could set off a chain reaction the way it did. The confrontation with Lila left me drained, but it also gave me clarity. I knew what I had to do, and I did it with a mixture of dread and resolve. The next day, I called the bank, reported every fraudulent account she had opened, every application she had submitted under my name. The fraud investigators were patient but firm, and as they asked questions, I realized just how extensive her deception had been. It wasn't just one or two minor infractions. Credit cards, medical records, even job applications, all in my name. I didn't want this to spiral into a full-blown scandal at first. I wanted her to admit it, to make it right quietly. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized if I kept quiet, this could happen again, not just to me, but to someone else who trusted her. I filed the reports. I spoke to lawyers. I sent certified letters to the employers she had lied to. Every step felt like walking on a tightrope. One wrong word, one wrong move, and everything could collapse in chaos. And then the call started. Family first. Mom called, her voice trembling. May, I don't understand. Lila, what did she do? I explained everything slowly.
carefully choosing my words so that she could process it. I could hear the disbelief, the heartbreak, the sense of betrayal in her tone. Mom had always been the one trying to see the good in both of us, but even she couldn't justify this. Why? Why would she do this to you? She whispered. I don't know. I admit it. I loved her. I still do in a way. But this was not love. It was theft and lies. And it can't go unchallenged. Word spread beyond the family, as it inevitably does in our small circle of friends and colleagues. A few of Lila's coworkers called me, confused, asking if it was really true that she had been falsifying documents under my name. Some were shocked. Some were angry. Some quietly admitted they suspected something but didn't want to believe it. Every call, every message, every awkward encounter was a sting, a reminder that secrets have a way of finding their own light. Then the confrontation at her workplace. One morning, I received a call from her HR manager. May, I'm not sure how to say this, but it appears Lila submitted her employment forms using your identification. We need to conduct an internal review. I felt my chest tighten. Relief mixed with sorrow. Relief that finally the truth was being recognized. Sorrow because it had come to this, a public, undeniable revelation of her deceit. The story leaked slowly, quietly at first. A few friends of friends, a few whispers in the office hallways. But when the news reached her professional network, the reaction was immediate. Lila was suspended. Credit institutions began reversing fraudulent charges. Medical providers flagged the discrepancies. People who had trusted her professionally suddenly had to reevaluate their interactions. And in the middle of it all, I felt a strange duality, satisfaction that justice was being done, and heartbreak that my own sister had brought herself to this point. I hadn't wanted anyone to humiliate her. I hadn't wanted revenge. I wanted the truth to be acknowledged, the damage to stop, and for me to reclaim my life. But the consequences, public, undeniable, were unavoidable. Even in the quiet moments at home, the house felt different. The walls seemed to breathe with relief, yet mourn the trust that was broken. When neighbors saw me, some whispered. I could feel their sympathy and their judgment, sometimes at the same time. But I never regretted taking the steps I did.
And then came the confrontation I had been dreading, but also anticipating. Lila's friends, her colleagues, even extended family members began asking questions. May, is it really true? Did she really do all this? Every time I chose honesty, calmly, factually, without venom. Yes, I said once, in a quiet voice at a family gathering. Yes, she did. And it broke my heart. Her face turned pale. Her eyes, those familiar almond-shaped eyes, flickered with panic, shame, and something I almost recognized as regret. Almost, but not enough to undo what had been done. The public reckoning was not easy for either of us. Lila faced professional consequences, social fallout, and family disappointment. She had to answer questions she had never anticipated and confront the reality she had been running from. And me? I finally felt a flicker of peace. The truth was out. My identity, my reputation, and my life were finally mine again. I could rebuild. The lesson I learned during this period was harsh, but vital. Trust is precious, and even those closest to you can falter. Protecting yourself doesn't make you cruel, it makes you wise. I spent hours walking through my neighborhood afterwards, feeling the cool evening air against my face. The autumn leaves rustled underfoot. Each step reminded me that while trust could be broken, life itself could continue. And sometimes, moving forward means standing firm in the truth, no matter how painful. The weeks after the truth went public were a strange mix of quiet relief and ongoing tension. Leela had withdrawn from everyone, family, friends, even social media. She wasn't angry anymore, not openly. She was just gone. Like the energy that once filled her had been replaced with heavy silence. For me, life began to settle into a new rhythm. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the life I had before Leela's betrayal, but it was mine. Every email I opened, every bill I paid, every small act of daily living was a small victory. I could finally see the world clearly, without the shadow of someone else wearing my name, using my identity, or erasing my boundaries. I started simple, organizing my home, making space for myself again, locking drawers I hadn't bothered with before. I called friends I had distanced myself from over the past year, explaining briefly what had happened. Most of them were supportive, and a few even admitted they had suspected something but didn't want to interfere. I also reached out to Leela, not to reconcile, not yet, but to set boundaries. Leela, I said over the phone one evening, my voice calm but firm. I know this has been hard. I know you're ashamed, but I need you to respect my life, respect my boundaries. If you can't do that, we can't speak. Her tears came through the line, shaky, hesitant, almost apologetic. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant for it to go this far. I don't know how to fix it. I don't either, I admitted. But what I do know is that healing starts with responsibility. You need to take care of your mistakes. I will take care of myself. And that was it. No dramatics, no shouting, no vindictive accusations. Just clarity, honesty, and space. In the months that followed, I noticed something changing within me. I had always been trusting, even perhaps too much so, but the experience had taught me about vigilance, about discernment, about the importance of protecting my own heart, my own identity without shutting the door to compassion entirely. I started volunteering at the local community center again, something I had put aside when the drama with Leela began. Helping others gave me a sense of purpose and grounded me in reality. I focused on small acts of kindness that reminded me that the world was not only full of deceit, it was also full of beauty, resilience, and connection. I also reconnected with my personal finances, slowly repairing the damage she had done. Every account cleared, every document corrected, was a small act of reclaiming my dignity. I realized that these practical steps, while mundane, were deeply emotional. Each verified statement, each corrected application, was proof that I had endured and survived. Even with Leela's absence, I found peace in daily rituals, brewing coffee in the morning, feeling the warmth of the mug in my hands, walking through the park and smelling the damp earth after rain, listening to music that made me feel human again. These small moments were proof that life could be simple, gentle, and safe again. Mom and I began to rebuild our relationship after the storm. Our conversations were cautious at first, laden with unspoken emotions,
But over time, laughter returned. Not the same carefree laughter we had in childhood, but a deeper, more tempered joy. A joy that comes from surviving trials together.
Family gatherings became less tense. I no longer worried that Lila might show up, that she might try to manipulate, charm, or deceive. Instead, I focused on gratitude for the family members who stood by me, for the friends who offered support, for the small victories that reminded me I had reclaimed my life. I realized something essential. Healing didn't mean forgetting what happened. It didn't mean forgiving blindly or pretending the betrayal didn't hurt. Healing meant accepting the past, drawing lessons from it, and moving forward with intention. And so I began writing again. Letters to myself, reflections on the experience, small notes about the people I trusted and the boundaries I now held firm. Every word was a thread sewing my heart back together, slowly but surely. Looking back now, I can see the arc clearly. I was a sister who trusted, a woman who gave freely, and a person who believed that love could protect against deceit. But I also learned that self-protection is not selfish, it's necessary. That compassion must be balanced with vigilance. That truth, once acknowledged, can heal even the deepest wounds. I no longer fear being betrayed. I know now that betrayal is not a reflection of my worth, it's a reflection of someone else's choices. And I have the power to reclaim my life, my name, and my identity no matter what. Sometimes I still think about Lila. I hope she learns, genuinely, the weight of her actions. I hope she finds a way to take responsibility. But I no longer wait for her to change me, or for her mistakes to define me. I am Mae. I am resilient. I am whole again. Sitting here now, in the quiet of my living room, I sometimes replay those months in my mind. The suspense, the heartbreak, the betrayal that came from someone I loved so deeply. It's strange how a single person can hold so much power over your life without you realizing it until the damage is done. But I've learned something invaluable. We can't control other people's choices, only our own. We can't prevent every hurt, but we can protect ourselves and reclaim our peace. I've learned that strength isn't about anger or revenge. It's about setting boundaries, standing firmly in the truth, and moving forward with dignity. I want to ask you something, my dear viewers. What would you have done if someone you trusted, someone as close as a sibling, betrayed you so completely? Would you have confronted them, walked away, tried to forgive, or taken steps to protect yourself first? Life doesn't come with a manual for betrayal. There are no perfect answers. But sharing my story, hoping it resonates, hoping it gives someone courage, that's my way of making sense of the pain. If my experience teaches anything, it's this. Never underestimate the importance of your own name, your own identity, and your own heart. Protect them fiercely. And when the world feels heavy, remember, you can rebuild. You can reclaim your life one careful, courageous step at a time. Thank you for sitting with me through this journey. If you've experienced betrayal or know someone who has, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if you want more stories of family, trust, heartbreak, and resilience, please subscribe and support the channel. Because sometimes the stories we share help us heal together.